If you frequently read reviews, you may have heard the term introspective being thrown around quite a bit. Generally, to be introspective means looking inwardly to better understand or even criticize oneself. In film critique, we use this term to describe a film that the filmmaker has made about themselves. These films tend to be the favorites among audiences, but why is that? Is it the exchange of vulnerability between filmmaker and audience? Is it the invitation into a delicate world that we are usually divided by? Is it a mutual sense of sympathy or relatability? Is there even really a deeper connection being made with the audience when a film is more personal to the maker? Does a personal film really elevate its quality? Well, let's talk about the intimacy in the introspective. Unlike most artists from other forms, filmmakers are discreet with their personal lives. Songwriters write about things that happen to them, that's why there are so many diss tracks and breakup songs. Authors write fictional stories heavily based on their own lives, and painters illustrate images that reflect their current state. But filmmakers often take on projects that are completely distant to them. And filmmakers are infamously ambiguous. They're often secret about their intentions in their work and deterring questions about their films by urging the audiences to come with their own conclusions. So, when a filmmaker releases a personal film, its impact is palpable and significant because it's so rare. So, why do they do it, and why do we like it? I believe that sometimes they do it to reflect back on their lives as a form of catharsis. Though more reserved, filmmakers are just like any other artist. Their craft is their only place where they feel safe enough to process what they went through.
Должен делать, чтобы быть понятным, это быть искренним, это единственное. А уж думать о том, насколько он будет понятным, это уже, так сказать, не входит в его компетенцию. И здесь он всегда, как правило, ошибется, если попытается.
Because Tarkovsky felt this way, he felt he needed to reveal his past in Mirror with the intention that vulnerability and honesty with his audience would get them to see him. And in the process, maybe he would be able to learn to be honest with himself. Truffaut confronted his past in film so he could share his story in hopes that maybe someone would feel seen by it. The 400 Blows was even written in a way that gave the actors more flexibility to improvise. Doing so, he gave his actors a safer place to perform his own childhood as freely as possible, a commodity that he himself wasn't allowed to do growing up. As audiences, we understand this. They trade their privacy for our sympathy. When we watch films such as these two, we can feel the delicate nature of it, and you can feel privilege being able to see part of someone's soul so deeply. It is that mutual share of trust in the person who crafted and dealt with it, and the person who watches it and empathizes with it. But then there are films that aren't as wholesome, because being introspective isn't just being reflective. Sometimes it's about self criticizing and owning up to one's mistakes. In Fellini's 8.5, he depicts the depraved philosophies he lives by. Despite making you feel uncomfortable at times, there's integrity in how he depicts his behavior that is refreshing as a viewer. His transparency reflects humility, and as a viewer, you can't help but feel almost respected because you weren't being lied to. He showed you his true self. There's also a level of confidence you get to admit to your own faults. It inspires you to be your own critic, and it broadens your mind on what it means to be an artist who has true integrity. You've heard the term diss tracks, but have you ever watched a diss film? There are not many, but one of the most iconic is Sofia Coppola's Lost in Translation, that was then later responded by her ex-husband Spike Jonze with his own film, Her, both delving into the same themes of loneliness within an unfit relationship. This leads me to my next point. Not only are introspective films beloved for its vulnerability or transparency, but it's also because it offers a unique and genuine human perspective. Other films like Cameron Crowe's Almost Famous are similar to Lost in Translation. They both offer insight into a situation that many of us have never been in, but they both wrote their scripts in such a grounded way that it allows us to use both Crowe's and Coppola's experiences as vehicles to feel what they have felt. Not only are these two filmmakers exposing a difficult but life-changing moment of their own lives, but they also welcome us into this intimate world to experience it as they did. And they don't do it for purposes of pity or adoration, but for the intention to reassure that whatever you may relate to within these films, whether that's the isolated nature of a failing relationship or the fiery passion for art, it's normal to feel it, and you should have the space to feel it in all its power. Many coined the term introspective to stories that are inspirations or direct narrations of a director's lives. While this is true, I think there is another genre of introspective films that are just as personal. Films that are submerged in a filmmaker's style and vision with no commercial sacrifices or outward influence are introspective as well.
Believe it or not, Eraserhead is my most spiritual film.
Why, elaborate on that?
No, I won't. No one sees it.
So, let me explain. Take a filmmaker like Spielberg. The Fabelmans is introspective due to its autobiographical nature, but I could argue that the Indiana Jones series is introspective as well. Yes, it may not be about Spielberg's own experiences, but his process in crafting it feels so entirely to who he is as an artist. He has the tension of other films like Jurassic Park or Jaws, but also includes his trademark lightheartedness similar to E.T. I feel the Indiana Jones franchise was so closely curated by Spielberg that the two are almost synonymous. You feel Spielberg's personality and creative ideas pouring out of that series. So despite not truly being about Spielberg's life, it is a true reflection of what Spielberg values, prioritizes, and how he sees the form itself, and by that definition, it should be considered as introspective. Many define an auteur as someone who is distinct due to their complete control over their film. Francis Ford Coppola is known for having a strong grip over his production. He invests his own money, he writes his own scripts, and so forth. When it comes to the film that best reflect who Coppola is as an artist, Apocalypse Now is the first to come to mind.
Even the directors you know who are so successful, they can't really make the movies that they have in their heart that they want to try, even if once in a while, to do something personal.
Right.
So I just was going to do it anyway, and
It would be great.
I wanted to make the film, and if you want to make something personal, you ultimately have to put up the money or try to.
From its infamous production to the many physical, financial, and mental challenges he put himself through, Coppola did all he could to make this film come to life. He curated a film that is the epitome of everything he represents as a storyteller. From antiheroes to a toxic authoritative system, to violence, to lust, to greed, every idea, theme he's explored and continues to explore is found at its most thorough and well depicted in this film. The cinematography, characters, and performances only further proves this. Not only is it a well-done film, but it is an example of what introspective can mean to their art. So what does this mean to us and the quality of their work? I feel when you watch a director's quote-unquote passion project, you get everything that makes them who they are in a singular film. You get to see how they view art and what they value most when it comes to storytelling, and you get to see their capabilities being pushed to its maximum effort. And though this isn't personal to their life, it's personal in getting to understand their craft, vision, artistry on a microscopic level. And we as fans not only get to appreciate that we have another fantastic film from them, but we also get an active piece of work that reflects everything we love from this artist. It's one thing to create something that boils down all your talents and potential into one film, but it's a whole nother thing when a director that is known for being different creates a work that only further pushes the boundaries of what being different means. David Lynch and Yorgos Lanthimos are two of my favorite weird directors. The kind of stories they go through are usually so out of this world that you can't possibly see one being introspective. And yet films like Lost Highway and Kinds of Kindness exist. But exactly how do these films coexist in the field of personal films? Both directors are boundary-pushing filmmakers. The strange quality of their film is what tests the craft of filmmaking itself. They are known to approach their work so unnaturally to how we usually digest films. So when they release projects that heavily focus on storytelling and how they choose to challenge it, we see the root of their artistry. It isn't just about how they view art, but how they experiment with it. And these two films test the form unlike anything else off of their filmographies.
Do you want a video camera?
No. Fred hates them.
I like to remember things my own way.
What do you mean by that?
How I remembered them. Not necessarily the way they happened.
Lost Highway represents everything David Lynch is as a boundary-pushing artist. He goes in and out of memories and even tests our recollection of the film itself, evoking the question, what is memory, what is reality, and does it even matter? Kinds of Kindness blends dark humor, unsettling awkwardness, and tension in a whirlwind of absurdity that challenges the rules of naturalism. As audiences, we watch these films and find two levels of appreciation. Appreciation of the authenticity and the equality the artist is able to achieve when liberated from restriction, and appreciation for how they tested the form itself and offer new ways of storytelling. And these are the very things we loved about these artists to begin with. Doing films similar to these shows us the commitment these directors have to their style and the insatiable desire to introduce a new way of storytelling. Introspective can also mean an expose. Just as a journalist divulges secrets and the inner workings of a system, a filmmaker can use their work to dissect the depths of the form and the industry that they are in. Though at first these films seem to not be unique to these artists' lives, the choice to disclose their opinions in the industry they work in consequently reveals their ethos as spokesperson for their craft. Known for refusing to conform, Kubrick uses his films to challenge the very nature of authority. He's done this with films like A Clockwork Orange, Full Metal Jacket, Lolita, and so forth. But in his last film, Eyes Wide Shut, we see Kubrick confront the very authority that makes up the industry he's in. To make a film that not only aligns to who he is as a filmmaker, but to use said strengths to critique the very industry he's in is something that expresses his principle as both filmmaker and human.
And you've got this mushrooming town, mushrooming industry where people all over the country and the world are flocking like moths to the flame. There's a sort of collective hysteria and madness that comes from that, and she is absolutely, an embodiment of that. I mean, there's all these individual characters, but really there's also the sort of macro character of the town, of the industry at this moment in time. Someone who's knocking on the doors, outside looking in, crossed and contrasted with someone who holds the levers of power at that time. And then you sort of see how these tectonic plates shift, because that's really one of the most interesting things I think that happened at that.
Then we go the opposite way with Babylon. When someone like Damien Chazelle, who is known for making these glamorous homages to film and consistently romanticizes the craft, creates a film that acts similar to an expose of how toxic the industry was and maybe still is, it takes you aback, and it gives him a level of credibility. Knowing how much he loves film, but still willing to see its fault in protecting the people who make up the form, shows us that he doesn't let his passion corrupt his principles. When filmmakers do this, they invite us into their workplace and not only allows us to wander and discover the misconduct, but they actively point it out to us. There's a level of respect you feel from acknowledging the fact that filmmakers put out their name and reputation as vulnerable just to include you in the corruption that they witness. Though not directly personal to their lives, we get to see how important and personal this issue is to their morality. And seeing that level of virtue in an industry where terms like sellout are often thrown around is refreshing and an almost privileged experience. Introspective cinema comes in many forms. They come in films that reflect a director's life, and sometimes comes in the form that reveals a director's core value. Either way, both always exist in a good artist's body of work. I'd even go as far as to say that these two works tend to be the most significant in their entire filmography. Because they reveal both personality and soul, they act as guiding posts to truly understanding an artist and all the things that make them up as humans. And maybe that's the real reason we love these films, and maybe even why filmmakers make it. Because to be seen is to be known, and to be known is to be understood.